So welcome everyone. Welcome to, what day is today? Today is September 22nd of our Friday Perfect Connections meeting. Let's go around and call on somebody after you've introduced yourselves and just say who you are and the district that you're with, and if you want to say what position that you hold, because I know some of you hold multiple positions, or some of you are full-time, part-time, whatever you'd like to say about that. Anyway, so I'm gonna start with me. The most familiar person. So I'm Susan Walker. I'm formerly with the University of Minnesota. I am now retired. Woohoo! And incredibly happy to be back with everybody today on Friday. And I'm going to call on Nancy Trahey.
Thank you, Susan. I am Nancy Trahey, and I am officially also retired. And when I retired from full-time teaching, I offered to continue. In my role as the licensed parent educator in our district. We're a small rural district, and it has been of benefit to me. I like this transition, and the parents keep telling me they would prefer I stay, and the district seems amenable, so it's a benefit to all of us. And so I have a 15% contract. And I really appreciate this opportunity to connect with peers, with other licensed parent educators, as I think our role can be pretty isolating. So thank you so much for letting me continue to join you all, even though I'm an oldie. And I'm going to call on Rachel.
And Rachel, before you start, and Nancy, first of all, let's just knock off on the oldie and the whatever. Okay. Anyway, but I just,
I like owning my age. I think it's okay to say that,
All right. I mean,
I'm a grandma now too. I work for Albany Area School District. I didn't mention that, and I'm not going to put it on my little name thing because this is my home computer, and yeah.
So the other reason I'm just barging in is I forgot to ask also if there's a topic you'd like us to talk about today as you're introducing yourselves, and then I will put it into chat so we can come back to it. Thanks. And you were going to Rachel, right?
Yes, thanks, Nancy and Susan. I am Rachel Daly. This is the first time I've joined this group. I'm not currently a licensed parent educator. I'm an early childhood educator. I actually teach early childhood education at a 2-year college and have done that for the last 14 years now. Prior to that, I worked in early childhood, and so I decided I was going to continue lifelong learning, and I've been taking child and family studies classes at St. Cloud for, I think, gosh, maybe close to a couple years now. I should be finishing the parent ed licensure hopefully in the spring. And so I thought I would jump on, because not that it needs to be discussed, but I am in Red Wing and I struggle finding licensed parent educators for my practicum work in this region of the state. So I just thought I might make connections or pick up ideas here. I went to St. Paul to a couple of classes this summer. I have observed a parent educator from Rochester, but she was teaching a class in Goodhue last spring. And so I have a couple of different observations I'll be doing, and then eventually student teaching. So I think that's everything, but thanks for letting me join in, even though I'm not currently licensed in parent ed.
Everyone's welcome. Rachel, would you like to call on someone?
Sure. And I need to call on someone. I will call on Sandy because she's next in line here.
Thanks, Rachel. Actually, I have a very similar situation to you. I am finishing up my program at the U of M. So after student teaching in the spring, I should be licensed and have my master's in family education. I have a bachelor's in math and a teaching license for 7 through 12 in there. But like I said earlier in the meeting, this is going into my 9th year teaching as a parent educator. But I just want to soak up other people's knowledge. And, you know, I've loved the program at the U, like everything I've learned there. So I'm just always enjoying hearing and learning and trying to be a better parent educator. One topic I'd be really interested in is like information about when you have to wear both the early childhood hat and the parent educator hat, how to do that better, because I struggle when I don't have an early childhood teacher with me, wearing both of those hats at the same time. So.
Would you like to call on someone, Sandy?
So sorry. How about Carissa?
I'm Carissa. I'm parent ed in Mounds View. I teach all of our ECFE non-separating and separating classes. So yeah, wearing the EC and PE hat together for the non-separating is tricky. It's not my favorite. It sounds like everyone else has started earlier than us, but this was our first week of ECFE classes. So my head's spinning a little. I've just finished meeting 85-ish new families throughout the week. So I don't even know my own name anymore, much less anybody else's. Let's see, I'll call on Nikki.
Hello, I'm Nikki Murphy, and I am a parent and family educator in Robbinsdale area schools. And I do home visits. I also work in our district with some of our parenting students, so high schoolers. And I will call on, I think, Abby. Need to go, right?
Hi, everybody. I'm Abby Zylstra. I teach parent ed in Wilmer. I just finished at the U last spring. And I also struggled being in a rural area, finding people. But some ideas are, I did some virtual, people that had virtual classes, I would hop on with them. I shadowed Nikki and Carissa that are both on here, and Ellen. So they're all very helpful. Yeah, and we are in our third week of class already, so, but a lot of new families, so that's been exciting. And I will go to Mary Kay.
Cool. I'm just counting what week we're in. We're in our second week. I work at Burnsville Egan Savage Schools, and I've been doing this since 1987. Had the privilege of working in 5 other school districts, but none of yours, I don't think. Really love what I do. I'm a parent educator. I think my contract said 0.35 when I saw it and signed it, but I also have another full-time job. So between them, I stay out of trouble mostly. And I love working with student teachers, and I love working with parents and kids. And we've had some interesting discussions about if we have a non-separating class, can we actually have a parent discussion during it? We were just starting to do that last spring in the end of some of our classes, because we had someone who was a parent educator who believed that just wasn't okay and we should never do it. And now that person is gone, and now they have come back and said, no, we're not going to do any discussions in non-separating classes because it's just not appropriate. And so anyway, so that's kind of where I am. I have the blessing of teaching 2 separating classes and 4 non-separating classes, and I'm kind of around the board in terms of what I do, because like we had a dad's class on Mondays, nobody signed up for it, but because we had a teacher who left, we had all sorts of families who were looking to go to classes, and so we turned it into a family playtime. And 7 families joined, including 3 dads who were in the dad's class last year. So it's interesting. Nikki, the issue isn't that they're not receiving PE. I'm allowed to hand things out. I'm allowed to have one-on-one discussions with them, but we don't have a discussion as a group. because the understanding is that when parents sign up for a class called Playtime, they want to be able to play with their kids the whole time. So, let me see. I wasn't paying good attention to who hasn't been. Rachel, have you spoken?
Yep, I did.
So we
I'm
have
so sorry.
Katie
That's okay.
and Laura and Ellen.
Katie, go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. My name is Katie Anderson. I am a parent educator in Jordan, and there's a potluck going on in my room right now. So I'm taking over my coworker's room. So I would love, so we just had our first week this week. So I would love to hear any ideas about good lesson plans to do in the beginning, other than the typical development, temperament, things like that. What else have you done in the beginning that have just seemed appropriate for this time? So let's see, Laura, have you gone?
Hi, my name is Laura. I'm a parent educator at Osseo Area Schools, brand new this week. I was in Abby's cohort at the U, graduated in the spring, and I student taught here. I'm teaching a bilingual parent ed class for Latino families, and then another collab class, 2 to 5s. But my primary focus is home visiting. And you guys all gave me such a great start a couple weeks ago. Thank you. I've done some great research, and we're just kind of really developing this program. So it's really exciting to be on the beginning ends of that. My question relates to home visiting, but also parent ed in general. A home visitor, a teacher coach in our instructional coach in our district who's in this field, her former home visiting roles were in early child special education, and she's offered that they use the EQIP model for parent coaching, and she wanted to know if I was interested in getting that training or learning more. And I just wondered if any of you have any experience with any particular coaching models or EQIP in particular. And Ellen's the last one to go.
Ellen. Ellen, are you there? Ellen's eating lunch. Ellen will be back. So Ellen is the smiley face in the hat with the pigtails from Northfield. So, all right. Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. So we have a wonderful list of topics, and let me check our time. Oh, good. We got plenty of time. Before we start that, I was just going to ask, does anybody have any funny stories from the beginning of your school year? Anything or a story of anything that happened in your first few weeks with kids, with parents, with staff?
I have a happy story. I got to sub at the baby library story time yesterday. We got to sing some songs and went around, and at the end when the parents were playing, I was talking to parents, and I come up to the one man in the room, and he says, "I know you. You were my Spanish teacher." And I was like 20 years ago. And it was so amazing to make that connection and hug, and just now he's a new dad and he's full-time caregiver. And it was just really beautiful to see my worlds kind of come together. So it was very exciting.
Oh, Laura, that's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's the stories that we have, in our work and in our lives that help us return to the emotional core, of who we are and what we do. So thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. So should I just go back up to the top of the list and we start with, so the first question or topic had to do with identifying PEs in more rural areas. And it was discussed a little bit, but what is your take on that? So Abby, you were saying ways that you were able to identify some PEs for Wilmer was through networking? Abby? Oh.
I couldn't figure out how to get out of what I was like to make my Zoom big.
Oh,
Yeah, so I actually, in this Facebook group that you go into to come on to these meetings, I just posted in there, like, I'm having trouble finding people to student teach with or observe with. And then a bunch of people just commented, like, I have a virtual class, or I have this that you could come watch. So anything that was somewhat close to me, I tried to drive there, and like Maggie is super flexible in how you get your hours. And since you're already a parent ed, it's a little more flexible too. I think you need less hours than if you are not in that role. But yeah, it was a little tricky. And the one that I did end up finding was about a 35-minute drive, and it was an evening class, so I would just go there during the week. But yeah, you kind of have to piece it together.
anyone else have? Katie, I know you're in a somewhat, not really rural, but others of you who are in more remote areas. Nancy?
I don't know if this would work. So this candidate was completing at SCSU, but she was teaching some parent ed, and what they arranged was that I went to her class and observed while she was teaching, and we met before and after and so forth. So that helped her. Sometimes she came to me where I was, again, we had a bit of a drive, and then sometimes I went to her. And I think that helped her because then I could see the environment where she was working, and, that's something to ask about if you're already teaching as a parent educator.
We're not rural in Burnsville, but we're kind of on that edge of things. I mean, if I were coming from Red Wing, it wouldn't be close, but it might be closer than a lot of things. We have 3 parent educators on staff. We all teach part-time. But I would guess both of the others would also be happy to be observed if that was their, and I'm guessing to have a student teacher as well. So if that's ever a possibility, feel free to at least explore it, because I don't know, I have the attitude that anything is drivable, so you got to kind of discount what I say part of, but because I'm driving to Austin and Albert Lee for my other job, but it's, depending on how many times you have to be or how long you have to student teach and all that, it could be worth your time.
Yeah, thank you. Lots of I think I'm on the listserv. I think I'm on the Facebook group, and I started kind of close to Red Wing and then started expanding. It was like Red Wing didn't, Lake City didn't, Goodhue didn't, and this summer Rochester didn't even have classes. And so when I was looking for summer classes, then I got it, and Cottage Grove didn't have summer classes. So I know there aren't many summer classes, but just trying to build connections and see different things that different communities are doing that are within realistic opportunity for me. I'm not in a parent educator role currently. I teach full-time at the community college here in town in early childhood education. So, yeah, I am just starting to explore and get into classes.
Rachel, I don't know if it helps, but I taught 4 classes this last summer, and we have a pretty robust summer program every year for about 6 weeks. So that's a possibility too. If you're going to be going through next summer, or you're hoping to be done. But
I think I had talked with my advisor a little bit about possibly student teaching late spring. I'll have 1 class left to finish in the spring. And so I was hoping to be able to do student teaching when I wasn't in my traditional academic teacher role. So yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thanks, everyone. So another thing that came up was managing when you are in the joint role of being an early childhood teacher and PE. Rachel, did you also bring that up? I forget who raised that question. But let's talk about that for a little bit.
Sandy, it was you that brought that up, right? Can you tell us more about the challenges for you in that? That might help kind of some specificity. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think, well, I find the challenge to be because I do parent education in the non-separating classes where I am both the early childhood teacher and the parent educator because we don't have staff to staff an early childhood teacher at that time. So my challenge comes with just the flow. Like, we obviously start with parent-child interaction time and the parents doing activities together with their child. But then it's the flow after that. I've tried a couple different things like, ending the class with parenting time, not like kind of doing parenting in the middle and then ending with circle time. I've tried a couple different things. Nothing seems to be the greatest. It all kind of just seems iffy. So I was just hoping for some tips and tricks on doing that a little bit better.
I guess since nobody's hopping in here, so was the class designed to be non-separating then, you mean, because of the age or whatever, Sandy? Okay.
Yep. So I'm talking about infant classes, and then I have one, we call it Toddler Tuesdays. It's like 4 to 5 p.m. And I usually do that one by myself also. So, yep.
I think like Mary Kay said earlier, it's not, I think it was Mary Kay that said it, it's not a favorite, it's a lot easier when you can separate, I think. I mean, at least for me, and I also was a parent educator in Wisconsin and there as well. It is more challenging. So you're not alone in that. I think you're experiencing what probably all of us, or many of us do, I shouldn't say all, when we're in similar situations. And I almost find that I have to experiment with each individual group about what works well. Sometimes, the schedule that I think is ideal for me isn't always great for the particular family. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but, or where snack time falls maybe depends, or circle time falls, depends on what time of day, that kind of thing. So sometimes I think experimenting can help a little bit. Are you able to have maybe a para that could come in and help during talk time? Sometimes that's been able to get worked out for me so that then they can kind of be available and on the floor with the kids while I stay at the snack table with the parents, for example, and their kids are moving away to play as they're getting done with snack.
Yeah. At first, when I did this by myself, I did not have a para. And now last year was the first year I did. That did help a little bit. So thankfully I do have a para with me again this year. So yeah, I might try to utilize, her in that role a little bit better. So.
Yeah, to really specific directions for what they could do to be of help to you. And sometimes, I'm sorry to keep going on this, but sometimes I need to have a little chat with them while parents aren't there about, because sometimes they want to join in the discussion, you know what I mean? And it's not that that's a terrible thing, but I try to encourage them to look at what that does then to how things are flowing. That means another adult is getting into the discussion and no one's really distracting the kids, things like that. Sometimes just some honest conversations, not that they're doing something wrong, but that it kind of isn't help me for best practice. And with some groups, the kids are more, their circle of security is a little stronger. And so they're able to move away for a little bit longer times. And some groups, so that's why I think, I don't know if there's a good system for every single class. Sometimes you have to just play with what works. My experience. How about anybody else?
Yeah, I teach our non-separating and I don't try to do a sit-down discussion with parents. I don't have a para. It's just me. So it's just, this is the beginning of my third year doing it. And I'm not early childhood licensed. I'm only PE. So it's been a big learning curve for me, which I've said several times before, but, so I will usually have a handout, a topic kind of in a handout. And then while everyone's sitting and doing snack, maybe I get about 4 sentences out about it. And then they have the handout and I'm like, so if you have questions, let me know, and kind of do the more one-on-one the next week if they have questions, or that kind of try to do it that way. It doesn't feel ideal either, but it's kind of what I've kind of seems to work. So we do parent-child time, circle time, then we go to snack towards the end. And how snack goes, sometimes they're all done in 15 seconds and they're back to playing. And sometimes they sit for 15 minutes and it's the end of class. So that's when I try to do that much parenting. I'd like to try to, maybe as I'm less overwhelmed by the early childhood side of it, try to do a little bit more of a discussion, but without a para, I'm not sure it's necessarily feasible. Or when I was in Forest Lake, I taught non-separating, but we had an early childhood teacher and then I was the parent educator. So that was a lot different. We did sit down at tables, kind of the same routine. And grown-ups would stay at the tables after snack and do a little discussion, but it's still a little bit chaotic in the room. It's loud. If you've got a bigger group, it can be a lot, even in that situation, but it's more doable. Do you do a snack? I've thought about dropping snack too with the non-separating. I don't know. I keep doing it, I guess.
I hadn't done snack until just last spring. And again, in my efforts to just try something different, I did incorporate snack into the class, thinking that, maybe the kids would either stay there long enough for us to talk a little bit, or they would be distracted and we could have a discussion. I think it helped in the sense that it broke up class enough to have a transition to try to have a discussion. And then I found that ending with circle time actually, it just helped the parents know, okay, class is done. Because otherwise it just seemed like it was hard then to get their attention again and be like, okay, I'll see you next week, So in the experimentation, I felt like at least I found that out, that ending with circle time kind of helped wrap up class and provide closure.
I can speak to our non-separating classes in Robbinsdale. We do follow a pretty, I will say, integrative way of working our routines together. And so what I mean by that, so they come in and we just give them a short bit to explore the space of the room with their kids. And we gather into a circle time. And that circle time, right, I will say, I bet you're probably embedding PE in that circle. You're explaining mimicry, you're explaining all of these things. And so I don't want you to dismiss or feel like you're not providing when you are narrating some of that, what's happening developmentally when you do these things during the circle time. For us, after circle time, we move into our focus activity. And so we're giving them something very specific to observe for. We do relate that to the parenting discussion that's coming up, and we have them comment on on that development that they noticed and kind of the precursors that got the baby there, or the child, and then where that progression would be leading toward. And then we gather, actually, after the focus activity, we actually gather on what we call backjack or floor jack chairs. So do you guys know those chairs that are really low? They're sitting on the ground. It's like a chair with a back, but you're sitting on a little cushion and it's all one piece. And I can maybe send an image or something. I think it's called a back jack or a floor jack chair, but they're these little itty bitty cushiony chairs that we put in a circle on the floor. And so to address that piece with I don't know how this would go with certain ages without a para. So I hear what you're saying, but now you do have somebody. I will say that the kids are in and out of the parenting circle. So sometimes the babies, right? And I think Nancy, you mentioned that circle of security, right? I mean, they're coming and they're checking back in and they're in and they're out. And sometimes, you know, somebody cries and we're lucky to have an EA who is working with the kiddos during that time to keep them safe. But we actually split up in an hour and a half class. We've got it a minimum of 45 minutes of PE. So we've got it about half and half. We end after that, we'll kind of, so that transition that you're talking about, we will sing a little transition song to let them know we are moving into a snack time. And then we do have a goodbye song after snack. And I usually do that goodbye song. I let the families know, I want everyone to hear it. So if we have a little one who's done and they're ready to leave, I'll let families know we're going to sing the goodbye song so that everybody can hear it and participate. And then if they're not done yet and they want to relax and enjoy their snack, we're not hurrying anyone. We're just making sure that everyone got to say goodbye. And so sometimes then they're still there for 5 minutes, enjoying snack and cleaning up and kind of gathering their things. And so that's kind of the routine that's worked for us. But I can hear as everyone's talking about this, like there's lots of these elements of whether you have an EA or a para and how these pieces really become integrated, I think does impact what you're able to do via PE. Because I think my inkling is that you're probably getting in more PE than you're giving yourselves credit for, because if it's integrated, it's coming out and maybe just not as a focused discussion. But I definitely think the kids build up stamina too over the course of the semester and the school year for how long they're able to play and wander away from the parents. So I'm going to encourage everyone, do it, even if you're gathering in a circle and it's short, because I think those kiddos are going to build their stamina for how much they can play, especially if there's that para.
Nikki, I put a picture in the chat. I don't know if that's what the chair you were referring to. I've heard the ones from Lakeshore are amazing.
Is one of the kinds. We have a different kind, but exactly. You're sitting on a cushion and there's a back. Yeah, ours look a little different, but thank you. That is what I mean.
I want to get one of those for my house. Like, oh, they're expensive, Ellen? So what are we talking about? I'm just curious. Are we talking?
Lakeshores are 70 for, is it per chair or is there a set? $70. I think it's per chair.
They're probably easily washed, right? Like the surface or whatever that helps with those. Yeah. Wow. Okay. We need 10. Yes. So start a, what is it? What's the crowdsourcing thing to raise money? I forget.
If your district allows it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. GoFundMe.
GoFundMe. That's right. GoFundMe for those fun chairs.
There's two more. I will give you the two that our district just approved. I'm going to look it up for you because there's two others it's not GoFundMe, but there's a couple crowdsource. Oh, Donors Choose. That's one of them. Do you all know Donors Choose? So Donors Choose, and let me look up the other one because we're allowed to do crowdsourcing now.
Oh, great. Look at that. We just like ventured into another helpful topic that we weren't even expecting. Donors Choose. Cool. And then there's a second one. Yeah. And my guess is the acceptance or lack of acceptance might have to do with security or I don't know. Anyway, interesting. Great conversation. Thank you. Thank you for that. It's a, that combination of separating, non-separating, comes up fairly frequently. So I'm glad we could revisit that. Let's also talk about, since a question came up about sort of topics for the beginning of the year. And I have a horrible memory. Like I have I'll recognize you in 50 years of my life, but I'll not remember your name. And I clearly can't remember who said what. So whoever it was who brought up the early beginning of the year topics, other than the traditional stuff of like ages and stages, could you refresh our memory on that question? And then we can contribute.
That was me, Katie.
Katie?
I think it's just typical to do topics like development and temperament at the beginning of the year, and they're great to kind of set the foundation. But I just wondered if there were any other topics that people tend to do this time of year that parents have really enjoyed or found a lot of value in. This doesn't have to take long, just a minute, but yeah.
I always do observation and perspective taking because I feel like our entire year and our semester is built on how we are encouraging our families to observe and do perspective taking. And so I do practice I narrations with the families so that we can use that as a tool moving forward, especially if they bring up a developmental highlighter, something that they're looking for suggestions or they've got some concerns, then we'll go back and ask or offer if they want to describe it as an I narration and see if they can gain their children's perspective before we try to take some guesses as to what's going on and how to move forward. So observation and perspective taking is a big one for me.
Thank you.
Are you all familiar with I narration? Honestly, like I can intuit what that might mean, but that's a new term for me.
Me too.
I'm the only one who doesn't know it.
No, I don't know.
Oh,
I can say more. I have
Or give an
parents-
example, maybe, Nikki.
Yeah, I have our parents practice with partners or in small groups. They all choose a scenario that has occurred, maybe that morning, that week, that month. It could be something that they're working on or a scenario with heightened emotions. It can be anything that happened, something memorable. But their goal, the assignment is to describe it from their child's perspective. So they need to say, this morning I woke up and I was really feeling this, and I was thinking about that, and I think that this is why I was so agitated, but they're really taking some guesses as to what was happening. And oftentimes as they're speaking, I give parents permission to gently comment to their partners, if they hear he or she, because it's very easy. The parents often will slide into, and then he said that, and he fell apart and he was on the floor. It's like, no, I was very upset and I was crying and I was kicking and stomping and I was screaming and my nose was running. And so they really need to stay in that I perspective. And they learn a lot from it, and we use it the entire school year because it really helps them. A lot of times they hear them saying something that they're like, oh, I think that might be what this is about. And at the beginning, I also hear from families, it's very difficult. They've never done it. And some of them struggle, some of them laugh. It is a fun experiment. They do get into it. But we always process, how did it go? How did it feel? Did it feel natural? Did it feel, and over the course of the year, someone inevitably will hear about a situation that there's someone's checking in about, and someone else, another parent will offer if they want to try an I narration, or sometimes we turn it to someone else. Do you want to take a guess about what the child was experiencing? And someone else can describe it from that I perspective.
Where did you hear about this idea, Nikki? Or is there a place where you've gone to kind of get more information about it? Or do you just kind of come up with your own ways to do it? Or
I would have to look back. That's a really good question. I've been using it for many, many years. With observation and perspective taking, I often give them, you all have seen so many images of like, what do you see in this image, right? And then someone else points something out to you and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was in there. And so we use a lot of that. I think I built it over time, but I will really need to dig and see if I can find, you'll find it in parenting materials.
Okay.
I'll see what I can find.
Thank you. That's a great idea.
So when you first mentioned it, Nikki, I thought you were saying I narration. So like a whole descriptive thing, like, no, I mean, EYE, like my eyeball. Yeah. Like you were narrating what you saw. So if you were observing your child's behavior, it was like a narration of, I see them doing this, I see them doing that, right? But it was only in your description that then I realized it was it is perspective taking, you know, and it harken a little bit to the hourglass, right? To the reflective dialogue that is like, what is the parent thinking? What is the child thinking? You know, and so thank you. Thank you so much for explaining that. That was new to me. It makes perfect sense what it is. And what an incredibly valuable tool for parents. Have you ever thought about doing a Manafi workshop on that?
No, because I assume everyone is doing stuff on observation. I don't know. I've never thought about it. But the reality is, right, we have to set them up to do that observation and to do it well and to see and to experience it through their children's eyes, because every class, right, we have this parent-child interaction time, and until we help them to see what we see in it, they often don't. They don't see all of the developmental milestones and gains and all of these things, because this is our background. And I think we see it so readily. And as they hear more about how to observe and what they're observing for, and then be able to move on of why is this important, right? Mm-hmm. It's important because then we can do some perspective taking. So no, I think I jumped to some conclusions. It sounds like maybe it would be of interest. I don't know.
Well, personally, I think that any teacher who can learn more about observational learning and teaching to any learner, whether it's a parent or whether it's a 7-year-old or whether it's an old person like Nancy and I, you know, I mean, it's just because we're so oriented around head work and cognition and looking at images and, you know, but not people and interpreting and that kind of thing. So yeah, thank you. I don't want to end before we also, so 2 things. One, I just put in a link in chat for topics. So, because I really like the idea that somebody came up with a couple weeks ago about having like a topic, but advertising it ahead of time so people know that's the topic we're going to kind of focus on. We can talk about other things, of course. So if you have any topics like for future groups that you would like are spending more time on, possibly one you can't be at, but we talk about it and then it'll be on the video. You know, please go to the link, ignore the September 22nd thing. That doesn't mean like you have to get your topic in today. I'm going to change that. Anyway, but I want to come back up to the EQ-IP coaching model that Laura had asked about. Is anyone familiar? Laura, do you want to rephrase that for us again? And then what your question is around that coaching model?
This model was offered to me from a home visitor in early childhood special education that she's been using this model for quite some time. I did a little research on it through the Pacer Center and it sounds very intriguing. I just wondered if anyone's familiar with using it. It's not as if we discussed coaching models. In my degree in parent education, I have used reflective dialogue with parents as a coaching format. So I just wondered about familiarity with other models that we could look at for home visiting.
So first of all, is anyone familiar with this EQ? Oh, Nikki is.
Yeah, I am. Actually, our district uses EQUIP and FGRBI, Family Guided Routines-Based Interventions. And it seems to me like, and also, Laura, it's our early interventionists. So it is coming from an EI model. And I think our reflective dialogue, I like what you said about that. I think that we are also coaching. The model that I feel like I have aligned closest to is been like cognitive coaching, like what our QComp coaches, our peer coaches are using with us, feels to me the most in alignment with how it is that we come forward with our families. Because for let's say like a behavioral type of visit, when there's challenges there, right? We are asking the families to identify those goals and to ask them. So if you could set a priority and make one thing smoother, easier in your household or during a certain routine time, what would that be, right? And so I think that coaching, the cognitive coaching, feels like a good alignment. Whereas we meet fewer times, I think our EI, our early interventionists, will probably meet with them once a week for the entire school year.
Nikki, could you share again the name of that other model, the family? Sort of trip through that quickly. Looking at the concentration on your face, I'm assuming you're putting it in chat. Yes.
Sorry, I did. I put FGRBI and it's family guided routines based interventions. Yeah, I typed it for you.
Terrific. Great. Wow. Look at that. So we have about 2 minutes left. Anything else anybody wants? Oh, I'm sorry, Laura, I'm just like skipping right over that. So do you have additional questions on that, or was that?
Well, that's great. That gives me a good start and understanding different models. Yeah, thank you.
We have had people on our group who work specifically as parent coaches and have set up either a separate business doing parent coaching, and there are other people who are not on our group here, but who I don't believe are licensed parent educators, and we can have a whole discussion about sort of the merits of license versus not, and but who are not licensed parent educators but do parent coaching and parent coaching models that are nationwide and are international as well. And I personally think it's always healthy for anybody in a profession to understand the range of ways that your profession is enacted, and that it isn't just one model of in a classroom. It's not just a model of home visiting. It's not just a model of coaching and mentoring. It's not just a model of, say, doing video or whatever, but to me, it just gives us more tools for our toolbox and more strategies. So I'll just end with that. So how many of you in your experience have seen your own ECFE program move into other modalities that are not traditional to the ECFE model? So, Chris, I absolutely adore. No, you're putting your thumbs down, because why? I mean,
well, I think we've had a lot of leadership change. So that's a big, I think, part of it. I feel like we've actually gone the other way a little bit. Not that we ever had a lot, but we like, especially since COVID and with the leadership change, we've really gone back to just like getting the classroom like back to where it should be. So maybe in the next couple of years, we can start to move the other way, or 3 or 4 years or something. But it's been a little bit frustrating. Like even virtual stuff, like nothing is happening.
Yeah. Well, it's somewhat understandable. I mean, with administrative stuff where you just want to get back on, you want just get the train back on the track, right? And people will respond well to things that are familiar to them. And so if you're trying to regain your audience, sort of letting your audience know that what was familiar to them is what's available to them. So I get that, right? And COVID did a lot of things to kind of either keep us focused, or in some cases, I think especially with the video thing, it opened up some opportunities because it was necessary. And then as programs got started again, it was just like, hey, we could do that through video. Or video seems to work really well with parents of little tiny babies because they can stay at home. So yeah, it varies. Oh, well, I've just talked us past our 1 o'clock. Anything else for the good of the cause before we wrap up for today? Hearing nothing, it's so wonderful to see your faces. I wish you the best, and we will see you again next week on the 28th, I guess it is, 29th, something like that. Anyway, it'll be the last Friday in September. So
29th.
the 29th. So take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.